Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov Chess channel and welcome back to the round 11 of the Tata Steel Masters in 2022. So we had so far really beautiful and great tactical games, but in my opinion in the round 11 we have really seen the best game so far, and it was a tactical beauty between Jorden van Foreest and Anish Giri. So two Dutchmen are battling it out in really one of the sharpest games so far, and we had already in 2021 sort of a rivalry in Tata Steel between the two Dutchmen, because if you don't know, Jorden van Foreest and Anish Giri played this Armageddon game for the first place, and Jorden van Foreest was the winner of the 2021 edition of the Tata Steel Masters. So Jorden van Foreest doesn't have chances to win this tournament. Anish Giri had some mathematical chances to maybe even be the winner, but I'm going to tell you then at the end of the video the current standings of this tournament, and I wanted to also explain you some important facts and some important things at the end of the video, because Dubov cannot play in the tournament anymore, and this gives here the tournament already sort of a decisive note, because many things can be already decided in tomorrow's round, because Magnus Carlsen has a good chance, even with the draw, to be the winner of this 2022 Super Edition. So but we'll come to that part at the end of the video. Let's check out now this beautiful tactical game. So as I said, Jorden van Foreest with the white pieces and Anish Giri with the black pieces. So Jorden opened with the move d4. Here knight to f6 was played by Anish. We have c4, e6, and after knight to c3 you can go of course into the queen's gambit decline, but here Anish Giri played the Nc3 Indian defense, and this is really one of the best ways of course to meet these ideas of whites. Of course, many times in top grandmaster level we have seen this anti-ninja system with the move knight to f3, but here Jorden van Foreest is basically inviting Anish Giri. He's saying to him, let's go into the sharpest lines of the Nc3. So bishop to b4, we have a3. This is now the so-called samish variation. In my opinion, it's not the best of methods that you can play against the Nc3. There are many better ways. I like this normal system with e3, bishop to d3, and then knight to e2 if I face, for instance, the Nc3. But okay, here Jorden van Foreest already spiced it up with the samish variation with the move a3. And okay, we have bishop to c3, b takes c3, and that's the actual goal of the Nc3, this messed up pawn structure, especially this double pawn structure. But there is a clear target now in white's position. It's the weak c4 pawn, and that's exactly what Anish Giri will try to attack. But there is a huge problem always for black in the Nc3. You have messed up the pawn structure, you can go positionally into the game. When you give up, for instance, like Anish Giri gave up here the dark square bishop for the knight, then you have to create sort of a grip on dark squares, because you have to protect your dark squares. So that's why many times in the Nc3 Indian structures you see that black is playing sort of a fortress on dark squares with the move b6, d6, e5, c5. So basically putting every of this pawn on dark squares in order to protect the dark squares all over the board. So here Anish plays that immediately b6, but I wanted to point you out that every time when this happens, white has a dominant position in the center. So what white wants to do is now to create here a beautiful central control with the move f3 e4, and here after move f3 we have knight to c6 by Anish Giri, and now we have e4. And okay, you could maybe try this kind of stuff, knight takes e4, f takes e4, but I don't think that you gained anything, because with king to e2 maybe you can create some checks, and now after king to d2 I think that white has solved all of the positional problems. Now maybe queen to f3, trading off some pieces, and white can defend this position easily, I think, and this should probably be a winning position for white. But okay, this was maybe sort of a surprise element. If you sometimes include more pieces into the game, if the bishop would be somewhere here, maybe if the knight would be more active, then maybe even this knight to e4 tactical shot could work, not immediately because you don't have support of course, but always worth to analyze a little bit this possible tactical shot. Okay, here after move e4 Anish goes immediately for the c4 weakness. He's targeting now this pawn, and here after move knight to a5, bishop to d3 was played by Jorden van Foreest. We have bishop to a6, and now queen to e2, and here the position is about equal. What you don't like here in white's position is actually that the queen by protecting the pawn on c4, has taken now the natural square for the knight. The knight is of course a good piece here because it controls both of the squares d4 and c3. You can of course develop the knight on h3, knight on f2 castling. It's also a nice positional maneuver, but the problem is now that suddenly black will challenge here white immediately in the center with potential moves as c5 and also with the potential e5 move. And here already I think some things went wrong for Anish Giri, because he played now a passive move d6. D6 is not so good because I think you should play here immediately c5. The problem about this move c5 for white is even if you pass through here with the move d5 in order to create maybe here a dominant position in the center of the board, that's not good because you get this one, e takes d5, and then okay, you would probably take with the pawn here on c file. You have finally undoubled your pawn structure. You have finally solved all of your position problems because you don't have any more the messed up pawn structure on the c file. But now comes actually goal here of black's bishop to d3, queen to d3, and now with c4. I think that this is already a messed up position for white, because knight to b3 is going to happen here, rook to c8, supporting here the pawn, and I think from this point on black has a comfortable game. At least I think black has equalized the game. But here after move queen to e2, Anish played a passive move d6, and the d6 is not good because you're not challenging your opponent's center. That's now a simply 2-2 passive move, and here Jorden van Foreest immediately uses this moment and plays now the move f4, because he's saying, okay, you don't want to challenge my center, now I'm going to expand in the center, because here now you see the central pawn storm that Jorden van Foreest has built here. 4 pawns with the support of the c3 pawn. Now 5 pawns are storming in the center, and see now both of these bishops are very powerful. The knight will be on a natural square, kingside castling, and we can start simply to push pawns, and we can simply start to attack. So as I said, some things went already wrong in my opinion, positionally, not tactically. When you put now this position into an engine, it will show you slightly advantage for white, but in my opinion this is already a weird position for black. So queen to d7, Anish stuck with the plan. He's trying here to attack the pawn. He's trying further to attack this weakness, although probably again c5. You have to play, I think, c5 again. At least you're challenging something. But here queen to d7, now knight to f3, and you see now after move queen to a4, finally Jorden van Foreest can protect the pawn. Although in some occasions there are even some gambit lines in which you're of course giving up the c4 pawn, and then you just push here already, because black uses many tempi, uses many moves in order to attack the position. But now with knight to d2, Jorden van Foreest has protected everything, and so far he has now good control in the center. So we have e5, a little bit too late now to challenge the center, because here Jorden van Foreest simply calculates. If you play of course something like e takes d4, then you're just improving your opponent's pawn structure, and still if we have here 4 connected pawns, and now with e5 we're simply storming, and black is, as I said, strategic loss. So after castling, we have castling also by Anish. F takes e5, d takes e5, and now rook to b1 with the preparation to play rook to b4. For instance, if you play something like rook from a to d8, then rook to b4 simply kicks away the queen, and now maybe we can include the knight into the game, knight to f3, bishop to g5 when the queen is kicked away, when we don't have any more to protect our c4 weakness. So here after move rook to b1, again a new mistake by Anish Giri. He plays now the move c5, and there is sort of a method that you can use in the Nc3 Indian. There is this powerful blockade that you can, so probably here an idea to play the move knight to e8 would be sort of like, because if for instance white pushes the pawn on d5, then you could have maybe this one as a good idea to play the knight on d6, where the knight is a very nice blockade piece sort of, but it also creates a central control and is further attacking also the c4 weak. Maybe this is some kind of a way to counterplay this, but with the move c5 really already wild things happen, because here Jorden van Foreest played the stunner rook takes f6, and this was a beautiful move because it opens the position, and you see now all of the pieces, look at the bishop, the knight, the queen, are all of the queens, and they're simply too far away from the action. They're simply too far away from the king side, after move rook to f6, we have g takes f6, queen to f3, simply attacking this weakness, and now queen to c6 has to be played. If you play, of course, something like something like e takes d4, then you're really lost here, because e5 is even a possibility. If you play something like, I don't know, rook to d8, then you see queen to f5 can happen. This is very dangerous. Knight to e4, knight to f6 are opportunities. So simply too many great tactical elements here for white. Queen to g4 can happen. So the evaluation here is about 12 plus 12 for white. So you see, this is also a threat. So you cannot take here in the center, because when this bishop comes into the game, you don't have good protectors anymore. The great game is a tactical loss. So after move queen to f3, here, as I said, queen to c6 was played by Anish Giri. He's trying to get some more pieces into defense. Now d5, queen to d6, and there is also a rule. As I told you, you would love, of course, with the move knight to e8, and then the possibility, as we said, to play maybe some kind of a blockade with the knight. But the queen you should not use in order to create a blockade, because you have to use your queen actively. This is your best piece, and if you just use it defensively, it's not good. The queen shouldn't be the blockade piece in front of your opponent's pawn. So that's why here the position is already messed up for Anish. So knight to f1, targeting with knight to g3 or knight to e3 this weak f5 square. When the knight comes here, then there are even several checkmate threats with queen to g4, and then maybe queen to g7. So that's why we have king to h8 getting out of the range, knight to e3, and now bishop to c8, which controls now this very important square. So we have bishop to d2. Good move here by Jorden van Foreest, because he's like saying, okay, my bishop is good. If something opens, then we have a great activity. The queen is perfectly fine. When you're on the attacking side, you want to include that pieces there that are not good. The knight is good because it has still opportunities to get back into the game. So that's why with the maneuver here, Jorden van Foreest found beautiful tactical elements. So bishop to d2, we have rook to g8, then you see now bishop to e1, a great zigzag maneuver just in order to get your piece back into the game. So rook to g6, bishop to h4, targeting simply the weak f6 square. So we have rook to h6, although probably again knight to b7 would be, in my opinion, a slightly better move, because you have to bring at least some kind of a piece into the game. You have to control maybe somehow the position, maybe bishop to d7 also doubling up the rook. So you have to do something, because the knight is really weird on the edge of the board. It's not good to have your knight placed like that from this point on. Again, with the move here, rook to h6, the rook is again on a weird square, and now Jorden van Foreest protects the bishop, but also stays on this very powerful attack here around the square f6. So we have bishop to d7, we have knight to rook to f1, continue the pressure, and again Anish plays not a good move. He plays king to g7, although probably 99% of us would simply play that move, would try simply to hang on to this position. But again, knight to b7 would be a good idea, because what you can do, maybe you can try a check. Okay, you have your check, but now we can even sacrifice the rook back. Rook takes f6, queen to f6, queen to f6, rook takes f6, king to g7, attacking the rook retreats, and now we can play again the blockade around the square d6. So the blockade idea, I think, was the most important defensive deck, although probably white is much better here. But I think maybe you can hang on to this position somehow with the move knight to d6. Maybe black would solve many positional problems, but here Anish played king to g7, which allows now here Jorden van Foreest to go even with this bishop active into the game. We have rook to g6, we have h3, and now bishop to h3 was played by Anish Giri, and this was now where he sealed his fate, because this is the worst move that you can make. It seems so that you can take out the pawn, but actually what you should do here, although again I'm pointing out black is simply lost, white is much better, but at least I think you could bring this other piece into the game. Then maybe something like bishop to h5 could happen, attacking the rook. Even if you try rook to h6, then bishop to g4 is perfectly fine. You see, even if you take, then we can take here h takes g4, knight to g4. Here both are good moves, because the f6 is simply weak. So from this point on, again, black is much worse. But as I said, you have to, I think, even sacrifice the rook back. Maybe with king to f8 we're trying to escape from this mess and maybe hang on to the bishop position somehow. But after move bishop to h3, here we have bishop to h5. If you try rook to h6 to escape here from this mess, then g takes h3 is perfectly fine. You could maybe take, but now we have this one, queen to g3, creating a check. You have to escape here maybe to f8, but now rook to f6 simply wins the game, queen to d7, and now with knight to f5, it's a position that I think you can resign, because there is not a good way to protect the g7 square. Queen to g7 will happen, and black is simply lost. So after move bishop to h5, as we said, rook to h6 is not working here. Bishop to d7, bishop takes g6, we have f takes g6, and now bishop to f6 is again a beautiful move here for white. The e5 is now weak. You cannot take, of course, because there's simply too much pressure, so you have to retreat. King to g8 was played by Anish. We have queen to h4. Now this serious threat is queen to h6, and then here queen to g7, it would be a checkmate. You don't want to play, of course, queen to f8 in order to protect it, because you have then some nasty discoveries. Bishop to e5, queen to f6 will happen, and again it's a tactically lost game. So that's why after move queen to h4, here your Anish Giri tried to play rook to f7, where he could control maybe his weak g7 square. But now again a beautiful move here by Jorden van Foreest. He's simply including more pieces into the game. We have rook to f7, and now queen to g5, queen to f8, and now bishop to e5, picking up this very important pawn. Again, I'm pointing out the knight is simply too far away from the action. That's really a nice lesson how you should not play with your knights on the edge of the board here. Several doctrinal problems here are on the board, and again white is simply winning the game. Knight to b7, as we said, simply too slow. Now queen to f4, we have knight to d6, finally this blockade idea, but as I said, simply too slow. We have e5, knight to e8, and now d6, knight takes f6, we have e takes f6, and now queen to e8. But now a beautiful move, knight to d5 controls now this very important square, and here the evaluation is about +6 here for white. White is simply tactically winning this game again. So here queen to e1, we have king to h2, queen to d1, and now this beautiful move, knight to e7. You have to go, of course, here. If you play this one, then knight takes g6 is even a possibility. H takes g6, queen to h queen to h6. If you try that queen to g6, you have to play again something like this. If you go, let's go here, these are simply winning opportunities here for white. So it's simply, there are simply too many tactical shots that white can play here. So after move knight to e7, here we have king to h8, and now beautiful move by Jorden van Foreest. He played rook to h3, and in this position Anish Giri resigned. Why did it resign? Because there are now several moves that you can keep. You can play bishop to h3, but the problem is now this move, d7. Really wild stuff here by Jorden van Foreest. d7 was his beautiful preparation, and again, if you play queen to d7, then queen to b8 is simply winning the game. You see, you have to bring the queen here, and the knight is controlling that square, so it's game over. So if you try after move rook to h3, if you try something like queen to g4 in order to prolong the game somehow, then queen to h6 is, of course, here winning simply the game. There's not a good way to protect everything, so it's simply a position that you could resign. You have to sacrifice the queen, and as we said, it's simply game over. So what to say, really brilliant game played by Jorden van Foreest. He played this game really in a tactical great way. He sacrificed the rook on f6, created some spaces, created this weak square on f5. Anish Giri had, I think, several opportunities to get his pieces somehow back into the game, maybe to defend himself. But it was a tough game. It's really hard to defend this kind of position. So as I said, deserved win, I think, for Jorden van Foreest, which gives now this current standings. I wanted to show you now the most important thing. So Magnus Carlsen has now 7.5 points. Richard Rapport has 7 points. Anish Giri and Mamedyarov have 6.5 points. But we should, I think, kick away here Anish Giri and Mamedyarov, because they're the whole point behind Magnus Carlsen, and against both of them Magnus Carlsen has the win. So Magnus has won the game against Shagre. Mamedyarov has also won the game against Anish Giri. The most important thing is also to say Richard Rapport is also half of the point behind Magnus Carlsen, but Magnus Carlsen has also won the game against Richard Rapport. So it means now that Magnus Carlsen basically needs only a draw tomorrow, because in the last round he has to play against Daniil Dubov. What it means, because we have said Daniil Dubov is not playing anymore because he has COVID, and the most important thing is that Magnus Carlsen will get his extra point without even playing. So as I said, if Magnus gets 8 points tomorrow and 1 point for the game against Daniil Dubov, then he will have 9 points, and Richard Rapport can also get maybe only 9 points, but because of this better additional criteria, Magnus Carlsen is then on the first place for sure. So as I said, Magnus Carlsen needs only tomorrow a draw against Fabiano Caruana, and he'll be the winner of the Tata Steel Masters in 2022. I think this is very important because we can expect, I think, a fast draw by Magnus Carlsen tomorrow, but we'll probably follow more games, because I think especially with great tacticians like the Daniil Dubov, of course, who unfortunately cannot play anymore, but you see Jorden van Foreest played, for instance, this game. Praggnanandhaa played also beautiful games. Bd2 Rg8 played also a great game. So I think we'll have a beautiful round tomorrow, but then of course a beautiful round at the end of the tournament. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting tactics. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my coverage so far, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.